Rec League Podcast. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your family, tell your haters. Available on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Radio Public, Good Pods, Pocket Cast, Breaker, and Stitcher. At Rec League Podcast on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. At Rec League Pod on Twitter. Episode 130. Coming soon. Yo. Whether you watching this from Facebook, Twitter, click the link in my Instagram, or YouTube itself. What up, world? I just watched Dune Part 2. I am not calling this a sequel. This is the second part of the Dune story. It stars Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Rebecca Ferguson, Javier Bardem, Christopher Walken, Florence Pugh, Austin Butler, Charlotte Rampling, Stellan Skarsgård, Dave Bautista, others. This cast is massive. I know I'm forgetting somebody. Basically like everybody in young Hollywood except Tom Holland. It's directed by Denis Villeneuve, who has directed... He directed some foreign joints before Prisoners, but I am American domestic trash. Prisoners put me onto his genius. Then Enemy came out. I know Enemy may have come out in other countries before Prisoners, but in the U.S., Enemy come out like 5 months after Prisoners. Then Sicario, then Arrival, then Blade Runner 2049, then Dune Part 1. And here we are. Without going too into detail over spoilers and plot and whatnot, this portion of this story is Paul Atreides accepting his destiny. I wish I would have rewatched my Dune Part 1 review. It was October, so I know I did like a horror themed backdrop. I didn't even have a Dune poster at that time. And I didn't rewatch 84 before this one, which hurt me and helped me. Cause like, basically like I knew that like my favorite part of Dune 84, even though it was ass, my favorite part of that shit was the Kyle MacLachlan and Sting battle. And I wanted that between those characters in this movie in part 2. But then, like, I didn't really remember the Florence Pugh character. I really didn't remember the Christopher Walken character, keeping it a buck. But, like, I'm pretty, like, this is part 2 of an unfinished story. We have to get a third movie. Hans Zimmer's already working on the score for the third movie, right? So, I'll rewatch the 84 movie. I'll like torture myself again, and then I'll rewatch part 1 and part 2 of this version, which is just so much better. At top to bottom, like every performance, Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, kill it. Zendaya is like so good. Like I feel like so much. I noticed like between the Spider-Man trilogy and these 2 Dune movies, so much of her performance is like given with her eyes. It's crazy. Like I don't know. She just, her eyes were like such an emphasis in every scene she was in this movie. But like they were good. Josh Brolin was good. Javier Bardem, Rebecca Ferguson, Stellan Skarsgård, Dave Bautista, Austin Butler. Performances top to bottom, knocked it out of the park. I really enjoyed this movie. But, like, I want to say this early on so I don't forget. Recency bias is a thing. This is a very good movie. Improves on the first. Watching the first one yesterday, then watching the new one. Watching part 1, then part 2 in back-to-back days. Feels like it makes part 1 better. But, like, there is, like, social media leads people to clamor and hype up new shit. Every new thing that's great on social media becomes the new best thing of all time. Like if Ghostbusters Frozen Empire or Furiosa or Inside Out 2 all meet Deadpool and Wolverine, if they all meet expectations, they will be the new best movie of all time, masterpiece, mind-blowing, whatever. And I'll just, like, but y'all just said this about these other movies. Like, this, I really like this movie. I think it improves upon the first one. It's a sequel that surpasses the first story. I don't think it's a masterpiece. If you do, to each his own and all of that. If you're mind blown, if you're whatever, cool. There are so many other movies in the history of cinema that are better than Dune Part 2. Austin Butler is great in his role, but he is not in the same conversation as Darth Vader, as Hannibal Lecter, as Anton Chigurh, again, shout out Javier Bardem, as Heath Ledger's Joker. We're 2 months and a week into 2024. He's the best villain of the year. Give him that. But he's not cemented as one of the all-time great cinematic villains. Again, I love, like, Timothée Chalamet, like, was just like this prince who wanted to be in the mix. He was a kid who wanted to play with the adults in the first movie. In this movie, the character development is so money, he becomes an adult. He accepts his destiny, like I said earlier. Like, he makes adult decisions, and, like, other characters don't like it. That's what I'm saying. Like, I didn't rewatch 84 this week, so there were plot turns that I forgot about or just didn't expect, didn't remember. And it threw me, like, oh, like, that's great writing. It's probably a part of the book. Like, I don't think Denis Villeneuve is gonna skew too far from the source material. Visually, this movie is beautiful. Like, it comes out in March of 2024, before the Oscars celebrating 2023 even air. So, like, this, I'm skeptical but hopeful that this movie is remembered when next year's Oscars come around, because, like, visual effects and cinematography, score should all be awarded. Directing should be awarded. As great as the acting is, I don't know if any acting awards are coming for this movie. Yeah, like, this is one of those, like, technical marvels, like somebody who doesn't pay attention to all the Oscar categories. This is a movie that stood out in a lot of categories, the ones I just said: costume design, set design, hair, makeup, all of that. I don't know if, like, costume design and hair and makeup are separate or not, but whatever. Yeah, man, this was the first, like, event release this year. As weak as fuck as January and February of this year have been, Argyle being my only highlight, everything else was good to mid to bad. I reviewed one bad movie. I saw one bad movie on Netflix. This is the first, I feel like this is the first must-see of 2024. I know there's shit, like, check my Letterboxd review, because I know hitting record, there's something I want to say that I'll forget to say. With all that being said, I will say that, in my opinion, Dune Part 2 is almost dope as fuck. Denis Villeneuve does not miss. Have you seen Dune Part 2, man? What you think? Positive, negative, somewhere in between, let me know. I have recently been sitting on my ass. A couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I watched Madame Web. I reviewed Madame Web. I watched One Love, Bob Marley, One Love. I reviewed Bob Marley, One Love. Next weekend, I want to watch and review Kung Fu Panda. The weekend after that, I think, if it comes to my theater, I'll watch and I will review Arthur the King. Rec League Podcast. It's first episode in a month, so there's a lot of catching up. trailers, news, probably Dune Part 2 spoiler discussion. Check it out, man. Like, subscribe, comment. Find me where you find me, man. Don't know where to find me. Watch these credits. Peace.